It's not a secret that webcams are worse than full-size cameras for recording. I mean, webcams are notorious for being okay, but none of them are really great. But this camera right here might just be able to close that gap for less than a quarter of the price. What's up guys, my name's Wubsy and I buy a lot of weird shit. And then I try to make decent videos about those products so that you guys don't have to waste your money like I do. I try to skip over all the technical specifications, jargon, and give real life opinions in real life situations. So if all that cool technical lingo is what you're after, there's a ton of good videos on YouTube, but this is not one of them. Now let's get into it. Today I've got what is possibly the best camera you can buy for less than $200. This is the Razer Kiyo Pro, and you can snatch it up right now from Best Buy for only $100. It's a USB camera that is able to record at 60 frames per second in 1920 by 1080p quality. There's a lot of other specs that you guys can read about, and I'll drop a link in the description for those of you who want to read about them, but I like to skip the mumbo jumbo and get right into it. Straight out of the box, you guys can see this thing is hefty. And I've actually got the super popular Logitech C920 here to compare it to. I mean, seriously, just look at the beef on this thing. There's no comparison. It doesn't really even look like a webcam. If I'm being honest, it looks just like a camera lens. And it's kind of heavy too. I mean, it definitely feels like a solid built camera. It doesn't really feel fragile, and it doesn't feel like I'm just gonna accidentally break it unless I do something ignorant. The camera itself is fully adjustable. You've got up and down adjustment right here, as well as left and right adjustment. This is going to make it easier to position your camera somewhere that works best for your setup without having to worry about the angles too much. It's got your common screen grabber style mount that just kind of sits on the edge of the screen like that. And it's also got a threaded port here if you want to mount it to some sort of camera stand. And as far as the setup of it is concerned, it's got a single USB-C cable with a little USB-C port sitting here in the back. You just plug the cable in. Then you plug the other end of the cable here into your PC and you're ready to go. Super easy. But instead of talking your ears off, let's cut to the chase and compare this thing directly to my $700 Sony A6000 camera setup. Both of these cameras are currently shooting in 1920 by 1080p resolution. And what you guys are seeing is the raw camera output. And what I mean by that is I did not edit any of this footage. I have not color graded it. I haven't touched it or added any post effects. This is straight from the cameras to YouTube. And right off the rip, if we're being honest, there is not a $600 difference between these cameras. Obviously, there are a few color differences between the two of these cameras, but other than that, they both perform fairly similarly. Where you'll really start to notice the biggest difference between these cameras is in the sharpness and the clarity of the image. If I switch over to just the Kiyo Pro, you can see that this image is a lot more grainy than the full-size camera. And we'll do a quick little science lesson here so that you guys can understand it better. In all cameras, there's a light sensor that picks up incoming light and produces brightness. For web cameras, this sensor is usually going to be a lot smaller than a full-size camera. Webcams are small, and there's not a lot of space to fit larger sensors. Webcams are also made for consumer budgets, and larger sensors are more expensive to produce, meaning the webcams would cost a lot more if they came with larger sensors. The Kiyo Pro does have a very large lens and sensor combo, but it's just not enough to compete with a full-size camera. And because of that, what you're going to get is a little bit more darkness and less clarity in your image from the Kiyo Pro. But this brightness can be adjusted by using digital gain. On this Kiyo, I've got my gain turned up to match the Sony as close as I could get it. But the side effects of boosting the digital gain is this grainy image that you can see. And this alone is probably the biggest downfall of USB and webcam style cameras. But let's cut the lights for a minute so I can show you guys how the Kiyo handles dark lighting. I've got to be honest here, this one kind of surprised me. I mean, the lights are off and the only thing even making light in this room right now are my screens. And I'm actually kind of mind blown at how well the Kiyo is handling this. You guys can probably see that the image is a little more washed out when compared to my Sony camera, but that's just going to be one of the side effects of using a webcam or USB style camera versus a full-size camera. I mean, keep in mind, the only difference between these two images that you're seeing right now is a $600 price tag. I am actually very shocked at this comparison. But anyways, back to the video. The comparison up to this point has been pretty unfair. I mean, I'm literally comparing a $100 webcam to a $600 full-size camera setup. So I want to even the playing field just a little bit. Let's cut the lights back on. This is the super popular Logitech C920 webcam, and it's probably the #1 most sold webcam ever. I mean, it used to be. I don't know if it still is, but that's irrelevant. What I'm saying is this thing is extremely popular, and most of you have probably seen it or had it as your first camera. And just like every other camera in this video, this thing shoots at 1920 by 1080p, but it only shoots at 30 frames per second. But let me get this hooked up, we can throw the Sony out the window, and we can make a fair comparison webcam to webcam. And this is the part of the video where some of you guys are going to realize why I give so much praise to the Kiyo Pro. This right here is the reason why I chose to compare this Kiyo Pro to my full-size camera versus comparing it to another webcam. And I think that says something about the Kiyo Pro. What is that saying? The proof is in the pudding? The proof is right here. Both of these webcams within $50 price point of each other, and they're not even comparable. I mean, just look at this. We don't need to talk too much more here. You guys see it, I see it. It's quite obvious. The Kiyo blows this thing out of the water. Both in a lighted room and in a darker room, the Kiyo is obviously on top. And just to mention it one more time, the Kiyo shoots at 60 frames per second, which is double what the Logitech shoots at, and that alone is worth the $40 price difference. So in comparison of these three popular camera options, wait, let's turn the lights back on. That's a little better. So in comparison of these three popular camera options, this is a massive difference. The difference between the Kiyo Pro and the Logitech or any other webcam within the same price point of the Kiyo Pro, the difference is humongous. Definitely worth the money for the Kiyo Pro. I would buy this Kiyo Pro 100 times before I spent money on another webcam. But this is not a $600 difference. The Kiyo Pro has enough video quality to produce really good recordings and make you look good on camera, and then you've got a lot of extra cash left over to spend on something else like lighting or other parts of your setup. The Razer Kiyo Pro is definitely holding its own weight even when compared to cameras with 4 times the price tag. And as far as webcams that are cheaper than the Kiyo Pro, it's blowing them out of the water. This camera really surprised me a lot, and I definitely think it's worth every penny of the $100 price tag. If you enjoyed this video, I just ask that you guys throw a like on it so that more people can see it. Because the more people watching the video means the more money I can make from the video, meaning the more things I can buy and the more things I can make videos about. I appreciate you guys for watching and hanging out. I'll catch you in the next one. Love you. Bye.